Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Like a Dragon, Yakuza. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I should first talk about this. I am tangentially familiar with the Yakuza franchise. I've seen people play some stuff here and there, but I know some story beats, but I know like the very, very minimum about certain things. So you're not gonna have like someone with like video game knowledge breaking this down. I did look it up knowing that this is based off of, this series is an adaptation of Yakuza and Yakuza Kiwami. I guess Kiwami was just a remake of the first game. I guess I knew that. I guess I don't remember. I wonder, did they add any stuff up with Kiwami? Considering they were specifically saying that, why not just say regular Yakuza? Why include Kiwami in that? Unless like there was maybe some added lore to Kiwami, because at that point there was multiple Yakuzas at the time before they went back and remade the first one. So maybe they added some extra lore to fit the narrative even more. So anyway, like I said, the only thing I know about Yakuza is how kooky of a franchise it is. I know like one of the big things is like the side quest and the characters being kooky and stuff like that, like a Majima type of situation. But other than that, like, I don't know if like the story is kooky. I think it probably can be, but it can also be dead serious at times as well. So either way, like I said, my point is I'm coming into this with slightly, no knowledge. So just kind of keep that in mind. I am curious about the whole bouncing back and forth between 95 and 2005. I was like, I'm curious, does the game do that or not? Maybe they're doing it for the show where we're bouncing back and forth timeline-wise, but maybe in the game it's like, no, you're 95, and then eventually you catch up to 2005. I don't know. Once again, I do apologize for my ignorance, but we get introduced to Kiryu in 2005, but he's already in prison, and we kind of rewind to him, Nishiyama, Nishi, was it Yumi and Miho robbing like an arcade, which... that's pretty ballsy of them, but it turns out that arcade belonged to the Dojima clan. So, I mean, it did seem like Kiryu already knew that, because at first they're thinking like, oh, we're just robbing this place where there's going to be a lot of money, and they're going to use it to disappear, because they grew up in an orphanage, and they're just kind of like, the person who, it's kind of like their dad, I guess he looks after everyone at the orphanage, is Kazuma, but I guess like, he's not that great of a dad, so they want to get out of here because they want their freedom and not be kind of chained down to this, because they don't really have anything holding them back. I mean, there are the other kids that I guess look up to them because they're the oldest, but Kiryu's plan was, okay, you guys get on a bus and go, I'll follow you afterwards. But when the problem is that the trio that Kiryu was telling to leave are already still there, because I guess he knew that the Dojima clan was going to come after the money. That's why I was so unclear of like, wait, Kiryu, they saying like, Kiryu, did you rob this place knowing it was the Dojima clan? And then later on he's like, yo, I did all this to get your attention. And I'm like, was that the plan from the beginning? Because he did make it clear that he wanted the other three to leave first and he followed afterwards. But I don't know if that was supposed to be like after I became a part of the Dojima clan. Because I couldn't tell if that was like no, I did plan this. This was always my plan. I just wanted you three out of the picture so you wouldn't get dragged into this. I mean, the only reason why things didn't escalate to get worse than what they were about to be is because their dad got in the way, And he's like, right, he used to be a Yakuza, but he's out of the game for whatever reason. So he shows up to try and, talk to the head of the Dojima clan about all of this. But it's a no-go. So... and to kind of like lure you in, being like, oh, no, kids, eat up, yeah. You should have a really good meal right before you die. And that's when Kiryu tried to make his plea. And then Nishi tried to do the same thing, but it's like, no. Like, Kiryu was like, no, let it fall on me. But it's like, nah, you two boys will work on boats for a couple years to pay off your debt. And the girls will basically work as kind of like the red light districts type of situation. Because basically it would come down to, in grand total, they owe like 100 mil. And it's like, yeah, 25 mil per head of who's responsible for this, despite Kiryu trying to take the fall for this entire thing. So their dad tried to, once again, tried to say he'll pay off the debt, but it's like, no, it's on them to do it. And Kiryu was like, right, I want to go into the underground fight. I always respected the Dragon of Dojima. That's what I want to become, because for him, he's like, there's a lane of freedom. And because I remember being a kid looking up to the Dragon of Dojima. I saw one of his fights in the underground world, and I wanted to be like him and inspired to be like him, because there's a type of power and freedom that comes with that, I guess, and respect. And he thinks freedom comes with that title, but his father tried to tell him, well, his pseudo father, because he's like, my real dad died years ago, which I don't know if that's like no, your actual dad is dead, and this is the guy that kind of, maybe he was a family friend that took you in, and it's kind of like a pseudo father to you. Or is it like you are a failure of a person, so my dad died years ago because that's when you stopped being my dad? I feel like there's multiple ways to interpret that. Once again, it's probably a clear answer if I was a Yakuza person who knew enough to be like, oh, well, once again, having no real frame of reference, like I said, to the overarching plot, then, it's really hard to, say how to properly interpret that. I feel like that was left open-ended to be interpreted two different ways. I don't know whether to take that at face value of my dad's actually dead, or no, you're dead to me as my father, because I'm assuming I'm thinking it's the former rather than the latter, but I could be mistaken once again. Sticking with the past stuff, you do have Kiryu in the underground fight, getting his ass whooped. He can't land a single blow, but he's also kind of excited because he's like, holy shit, like, I'm having so much fun. There's like kind of a freedom and excitement in this, and he's looking at Yumi like, why are you crying? It's okay. And like Miho had to tell their father, like, yo, come over here, give him some advice. And he does give him some advice, and Kiryu takes it, stepping on his foot, blowing blood into dude's face, and landing quite a few blows. Ends with a headbutt that knocks them both out. So it's like, I was curious how that was going to play out, considering it's like, well, the plan was for you to win. If you win, he becomes a part of the clan. It's all Gucci. But then, like, if he loses, it's like, whatever happens to me happens to me. And so ultimately, because it was a draw, it's like, all right, like, Suga, like, take care of this kid, take him under your wing. But then, like, the girls kind of put them to work, give them to someone specifically, put them on. I think that's the same. I think that name comes up later on, because they're saying like Yumi's older sister. So I'm like, because that's what I was about to say. Because I'm like, I do believe, yeah. So what happened to Miho? Like, is she gone or what? Because they did specifically say older sister, and Miho was like the younger of this quartet. So. Nishi's trying to prove himself to be a part of the family, trying to cut off his finger, but the Dojima's like, are you stupid? Kid, you got to cut your finger at one point or it's not going to cut off. And it's like, all right, you might actually prove useful, so take him to the hospital, make sure he's taken care of, because I guess the whole plan was like he never wanted Kiryu to take all of this on his own, and it's like, we're kind of a team, so at least we're in this together. Like, once again, that's a thing of, like, I do feel like they have a complicated relationship in the game. So, and obviously we see that kind of just where things potentially stand now, just in this first episode alone, that I'm like, like I said, I don't have enough context from the games to really know, but I could have sworn, like, they do have a very complicated relationship. And obviously the show will dive into that more, because there's a lot that can happen in 10 years. Like, how did Kiryu get in prison? How did, like, it seems like there's a divide, because this trio, once again, I don't know where Miho plays in all of this, because the other person, it wasn't Miho's name when they said, like, oh, this is Yumi's sister, because like I said, they said it was her older sister, because there was a certain group that was robbed, and it turns out Yumi's sister was the main person behind it. So I think that's why they're going after Yumi later on, trying to get her back for that, because it's like, you're responsible because I did your sister do this without your knowledge, or whatever she does you're responsible for anyway. Because Nishi and Kiryu were both under Dojima. Like, he's like, oh, I'll be both your fathers, but like, Nishi's at the top of, was it the Tojo clan? So that's why I was like, they're talking about him like almost like the Dojima clan and the Tojo clan are the same thing. Maybe that was my misunderstanding. But But like he's like the top dog, because I wonder if like Dojima's dead, like something happened in that 10-year period and he's gone, because it seems like Nishi's kind of running things. But he's also like, yeah, like when Kiryu gets out, I'm gonna take him under my wing. It's like, will Kiryu be down for that? Like, because Yumi was like, he'll never like let that happen. The others won't ever let it happen. But he's like, I bring enough money. None of the old geezers that run this operation, like none of the old geezers in the Yakuza can say anything, because I bring in so much money, so what I say kind of goes. But Yumi had to remind him, it's like, yeah, but a lot of that's because of me and my girls. Like, my business is what puts a lot of that money in your pocket. So they kind of she in particular seemed the most like, not even indifferent, the most having a negative connotation towards Kiryu, it seemed like. But I'm curious why. Once again, who knows what happened in that 10-year period. Because there was that officer, was it I don't even know if you pronounce it like Date or would it just be Date, whatever the case may be. He was a cop. He's one of the cops that was there when they robbed the Dojima, like back in 95. But he kind of let them go because I guess he saw that they were kids or something, or thought it was going to be too much trouble. And now here he is visiting Kiryu in prison. He even went to visit Nishi. Cause what's Nishi's full name is like Nishi Kiyama, I believe. I think that's why I always struggle. I almost want to say like Nishiki, but it's Nishi, but it's like Nishi Kiyama. That's why I think sometimes I'm stumbling on his name a little bit. This episode also highlights an element I do know about Kiryu, which it's kind of like it's a joke for the franchise. Like, people joke about it, how like, oh, Kiryu doesn't kill. It's kind of like almost like the Batman thing of like, oh man, you beat people senseless. You know, it's like, oh, do you really not kill people? It's kind of like that, where it's just like, oh yeah, like Kiryu will use, you know, in a game mechanic, he'll use random things as items that could, in a fight, that would naturally kill somebody. And it's like, Kiryu can jack people up, but his whole point is, I'm not going to kill anybody. And that's, once again, in the context of the story, I don't think Kiryu has ever killed anyone, despite being part of the Yakuza. Like, I think you could joke being like, oh, that would be enough to kill a regular person, but in the Yakuza universe, Kiryu's never killed anyone, technically. Maybe there's been indirect things he's been responsible for, type of situation, very much like a Batman thing. I don't know. I mean, those people he beat the crap up of... Because there's a lot of that felt very Yakuza. Like, even like the whole grabbing that guy's face and dragging it against the wall felt very Yakuza. Even like the final blow to that last guy, grabbing him by the legs, lifting him up, and kind of like sumo plexing him to the ground. I was like, yeah, that feels very Yakuza. He had no plans of ever returning to Kamurocho when he got out, but he got contacted by, like I said, I'm gonna go with Date, but the cop Date, who was saying that, oh, do you know who's responsible for committing that robbery? That's an extra reason for you to come back to Kamurocho, because he was like, I'm leaving Tokyo and I have no intentions of ever coming back. But that became a moot point now, that knowing who's involved. And like I said, Yumi also gets attacked too. Like, her car is knocked off of like the higher parking lots. Who knows if she was still in it when it went over, if she's just injured from it. Maybe this thing in itself is what's going to... Maybe they would have never naturally come back together again, because, once again, we don't know Kiryu's circumstances. Like I said, I believe the rest of the season is probably going to be a bouncing back and forth between 95 and 2005, giving you context, timeline-wise, about things. Where we were and how do we got to where we are right now. Once again, I just don't have full context of everything that's going on, so I feel like there's a lot I'm missing. But I mean, also, it seems like the show's designed that way, considering you're bouncing back and forth over a 10-year period of, well, this happened then, once again, how do we got to where we are now. There were 2 other episodes dropped. Apparently, I didn't know this until I looked it up. It's going to be 3 episodes released this week and next week, so I guess this is only like a 6-episode thing, but... I'm curious to check out the next 2 episodes and see where all this ends up taking us. Maybe I'll get better context of everything that's, once again, going on and what's currently going on, and where our kind of main protagonists lie in a grand scheme of all this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.